right, welcome to another episode of the Take Chances podcast. I'm your host, Mack, and on the Take Chances podcast, we talk about three things: tech, culture, and people. With that being said, let's jump right in.
You gotta take chances, it's your day. You gotta take chances, no more waiting. You gotta take chances, it's your day. You gotta take chances, no more waiting.
All right, welcome back. So I want to start today's episode off by thanking my first-time listeners. I'm excited to have you here. I know it's been a journey to get here, so I want to start off by saying thank you. And for those that are my returning listeners, I won't leave you out. Thank you all as well. I encourage my first-time listeners and returning listeners to hit that subscribe button and leave a review of today's episode. It's free. I'm a sales guy, so if I could charge you for something, I would. I'm only kidding, but hit that subscribe button, leave a review. It helps me out a lot just to get a feel of what's going on in my community. So thank you all. All right, so let me give you a quick breakdown of how this show works. 3 to 5 topics. You'll be out of here 15 to 20 minutes or so max. This is not a 2-hour podcast. We try to keep it short, brief, and direct to the point. And again, we talk about tech, culture, and people. Now, I start every episode off with a quote. And the quote of today's episode is, "Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind." This quote is from Bernard M. Baruch. I'll say that quote again. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Take chances. So let's jump right into the episode of today. Like I said, 3 to 5 topics will be done, 15 to 20 minutes max. All right. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different from our typical podcast where we talk about tech news, and I go to Google and I look at what's the top tech news story of the day and kind of bring that back to the podcast. I really wanted to tap into the business community. And the best way to get a pulse of what's going on in the business community is to go check LinkedIn. So what I want to do today is talk about the top 3 LinkedIn articles of the week. And the first LinkedIn article that I found that was really, really popular, has over 100,000 views, was Amazon snaps up a popular podcast. That was the headline, right? So anytime you put Amazon and podcast in a headline, you got one person that's going to click it, and that's me, because I'm in the space. I'm in the podcast space. But Amazon is a tech company, so I'm, a little bit intrigued about what they're going to be doing in this space. So the article details that they recently acquired a podcast network called Exactly Right Media. Exactly Right Media is a podcast network that's primarily focused on true crime shows. They do have a few different podcasts around entertainment, news, technology, but for the most part, it's a true crime network. And the article did not disclose how much they acquired this podcast network for, but it's very interesting to see that type of information be behind that headline. It's not necessarily the most mind-blowing thing that they acquired another podcast network. But I imagine that a lot of people clicked that article just out of sheer intrigue. What is Amazon up to these days? Jeff Bezos is no longer the CEO of that company. So we're trying to figure out, what's the direction that Amazon is headed. But, I'm a huge fan of Amazon and the brand, but also its leadership, not only just Jeff, but I believe the new CEO's name is Andy. I don't want to butcher his last name, but he led Amazon Web Services, and he's going to be a terrific CEO for Amazon. I'm really excited about what he's going to do for the company over the next few years. But that was the Amazon article. Not much meat on that bone, but over 100,000 views this week. Also, another noteworthy thing that I'll mention on this article, Amazon purchased the Wondery network last year for over $300 million. Me as a podcaster, that made my ears perk up. I'm like, okay, well, I got one podcast. Now I need to have a million different podcasts so I can have the Take Chances network. You know, this whole theme of this year is New Year, Expanded Vision. That was episode, I think, 14, or may have been episode 15. So as I think about that expanded vision, I think about expanding, my reach in podcasting, but also it's important for me to just stay consistent with one, because podcasting is not my main source of revenue. So the discipline required to podcast is important. And for me, my goal is to get to 50 episodes. From there, double that. So I just want to stay consistent with my podcasting before I start to expand and take on other responsibilities. Another thing that I'll mention on this article before I move on is just the audio ad business. We see that the podcast space is really hot right now, and almost everybody is running ads on their podcasting platform. However, personally, I think it's important for me to develop this skill set, the discipline, before I start introducing ads to my podcast. I've been building a one-to-one relationship with my listeners. And I'm appreciative of that. Like every review, every subscriber, I'm able to see the impact, see their feedback for what I'm doing. And that's important to me. Like I said, when I created this podcast in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, my goal or my vision was to expose my community to opportunity. And when I broke that down, what I wanted to do was interview guests in the podcast or in the tech space around tech, culture, and people. But then also express how I'm navigating my career as a young professional. I'm 30 years old, so I'm not sure if I'm considered a young professional anymore, but as a professional. And I just wanted to just share my voice because I know that I can help people maybe get into more tech opportunities. I hope that I can expose my clients and my coworkers and my friends and family to a little bit more of who I am. I think with us living in a digital world right now and not going into work, it's important for us to get to know people. And I think the podcast is the easiest way to do that, because you get to hear my voice. You get to feel, my passion around certain things. You get to see a little bit more of my home. If you're watching this on video, you can see, a little bit more of my office. I try to shoot this from a different angle than what you would see if you're looking at me on Zoom. And for my clients, I know a lot of clients ask me, like, we have 5 minutes or so where we can kind of do intros. They can kind of understand where I'm from and, that kind of thing, where we make a little bit of small talk. But for the other 25 minutes of the meeting, we're talking about business. But it seems like there's an opportunity to build more relationship there. And that's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, is so that I can build more relationships with my clients, with my buyers, and those who want to just stay in touch and get to know me better. So that's my reasoning for creating this podcast. And I'm kind of going on a tangent, but it's important to know for my first time listeners who are just tuning in. This second article that I wanted to mention that was really popular on LinkedIn this week was about jobs on the rise. And that's the title of this article, Jobs on the Rise, the fastest growing job titles via LinkedIn data. So this article just highlighted what were the top 5 job titles based on the data that LinkedIn is getting. As many of you all know, people can apply for jobs on LinkedIn or find jobs on LinkedIn and go to the company's website, which is a really cool feature. But the top 5 jobs that they mentioned was number 1, vaccine specialist. When I first heard this, I was like, who's applying for a vaccine specialist job? But then I thought about this a little bit deeper. This is a totally new job. Well, for the most part, I'm sure there were vaccine specialists, there have been vaccine specialists, but the growth or the rise of this job is more prevalent because of the pandemic. This is a global pandemic or global crisis. So it doesn't surprise me that vaccine specialist is one of the most popular job titles of 2021 and I guess going into 2022. The second popular job or fastest growing job title is a diversity and inclusion manager. This makes sense for me too, based on what took place in 2020. A lot of companies are trying to course correct and create initiatives around diversity and inclusion. So a diversity and inclusion manager, it makes sense. I feel like all companies should have a chief diversity officer or a diversity and inclusion manager at the least, but a chief diversity officer is important, at least for me. I don't believe that it would stop me from accepting a job, but it's great to see that type of commitment from senior leadership. And it definitely could put a company over the top for me as a candidate or a person that's in the job market. The third fastest growing job title is a customer marketing manager. This makes sense as well. We're living in a digital world these days, with a lot of us working from home, a lot of us, getting food, groceries delivered to our houses. Being able for a company to reach us in different and unique ways is important. And so marketing or having a customer marketing manager is almost a must-have in today's society. So that's another fast-growing job. The fourth one is software engineers. I believe this is the job that has the most opportunity to continue to grow. We're starting to see so many different coding boot camps, so many different colleges offering courses on software engineers or in software engineering. And we're seeing a high demand for these jobs in the marketplace as well. So that job title does not surprise me. For those that are younger listening to this podcast, I would strongly encourage you all to look into software engineering jobs. You get to work with in some of the best companies in the world. Also, you can get a software engineering job without having a college degree. I know that might be interesting to a lot of folks, but for those that do have a college degree in software engineering, the earning potential is very strong in software engineering. So that's a great job to have. And it kind of leads me to the fifth fastest growing job via LinkedIn data, and that's business development representatives. So this is a pseudonym for sales. That's a fancy word, business development representative, or fancy title for, hey, you're going to be selling something. Also for younger career professionals, this is a great job to get into. There's a tremendous career path. Look at myself. I work in sales. I didn't start off as a business development representative. I started out in sales operations. So I kind of have a pretty unique viewpoint on selling. I'm more data-based. That's weird, data-based. But I'm focused on data versus just, smiling and dialing. I do wish I would have acquired that skill set. Even though at this level it's a lot more strategic, it's definitely a foundational job for a lot of salespeople. I've been able to acquire that skill that you would learn of a business development representative through learning on the job and through working in some of the sales roles I've had. But for those that have zero experience, just looking to get into sales and make a great living, business development representative is a great title or a great job to look into. And I strongly encourage you all to check that out as well. That wraps up the fastest growing jobs and jobs on the rise article, which is the second most popular article on LinkedIn this week. And it leads me to the third popular article, and this is where we'll start to wrap up the show. So this article is more so a poll. This poll has over 50,000 hits, which is interesting for a poll to have that much engagement. But the question that this poll asks is, has a colleague's resignation led you to consider leaving your job as well? I want you all to answer that, but I'm going to read this question one more time for those that didn't catch it. Has a colleague's resignation led you to consider leaving your job as well? I'll answer it live on my podcast. The answer is no. I've never left a job because somebody else left a job. I got, the way my savings account is set up, hey, I need my money, and I'm not leaving my job because somebody else left their job. I feel like people's job choice, where they choose to work, when they choose to leave an opportunity, is so personal. Like, for me to make a decision based on somebody else making the decision is kind of, I don't know if that's necessarily in your best interest. Now, I do understand that some people make decisions that could affect you. Like, you might leave this job because you didn't like the manager, and that manager is your same manager. So you might feel like, hey, I may need to leave as well. But for the most part, I've been able to work with great managers. I've never left a job because somebody else has left a job. Curious to know what you all think. Have you ever left a job because someone else decided to resign? That's a question we got to put in the chat. Follow us on the Take Chances podcast on LinkedIn, also on Instagram. You can follow me personally on all social media platforms. My name is Chance Mack, and it's spelled how it sounds, Chance Mack, M-A-C-K. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Take Chances podcast. Again, I encourage you all to hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Again, I'm right at my 20-minute mark, so want to say thank you. Talk to you all soon. Take chances. Peace.
You gotta take chances, it's your day. You gotta take chances, no more waiting. You gotta take chances, it's your day. You gotta take chances, no more waiting.